Hi everyone, Kyle here from Bostick Family Light Show. Here with you today for a special video on how you can integrate your fireworks with your lighting system. So we have the Ignite i18 module. This wireless module will connect to your smartphone, and you can use these igniters which will plug into the i18 module. The other end will clip directly onto a fuse, and you can use the Ignite Show Designer software to program a pyrotechnical music light show. So what you can do is you can go use their Show Designer, which is kind of similar to xLights, and you can program the fireworks, you can program lead time. I'll get into all that in a little bit, but you can program your fireworks to go off at precise times. And then what we're going to do is we are going to use one of the cues or one of these triggers to trigger a GPIO pin, and we're going to use the Experience Lights input and output GPIO extender to send that command to our master FPP device to trigger our sequence. So this is going to be a pretty technical video, but I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. We'd like to thank today's sponsors, Ignite and Great Lakes Mortar Rack. So if you're looking to trigger fireworks, check out Ignite. If you need a rack to hold all of your mortars, definitely check out Great Lake Mortar Racks. Alright, let's get into it. So here we have one of the i18 modules, but let's do a quick unboxing. So you have your Ignite i18 module. You have a couple of cards that will show you their support numbers. You have a nice little memo from the CEO. You have stickers. You got a welcome pamphlet, getting started guide, some best practices to make sure that you do this safely. And then inside you have your Ignite module. You have the antenna, so you can take off the rubber cap, screw in the antenna, and then you have a couple of ways to charge the battery inside the i18. So if you flip it over, you have the lithium-ion battery right here, and underneath this battery there is going to be a code. You're going to need that code in order to connect the Ignite app. So when it asks you for the code, this is where it is. And then what you do is you take the igniter, and it has an end that will connect into your i18 module, and you will basically just plug this in. The other end, this clip here, will clip onto your fuse. And that is literally all you'll have to do in order to trigger the firework. So this would go inside the mortar rack or mortar tube, whatever you're using. This could also be a cake or really any type of firework. And this single-use igniter will trigger once the app sends it the signal. So I'll show you the app. I'll show you how to get this all configured with their Show Designer software. So next up, you have your Raspberry Pi, and I'll show you how to configure FPP on this in a minute. And then you have your Experience Lights GPIO Extender. So once you open this up, it is going to have a Pi hat. It's also going to come with these little standoffs. Go ahead and put the standoffs on. Slide the Pi hat over the GPIO pins. Make sure that it is lined up correctly so you don't damage the pins. And then you're going to screw these 4 screws in to make sure that this stays nice and tight. Then take a Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable, connect to either of these 2 pins here, or these 2 jacks, and then go ahead and you can connect to the extender here. And then you are going to configure FPP. Once FPP is configured, we can plug in the Raspberry Pi. We can see automatically that the extender is getting power. And then what we'll do from here is we are going to take one of our Ignite i18 modules, connect one of the igniters, and then you are going to basically just connect, you're going to cut off one of the igniters, connect it to one of the pins, and then when you go into the Ignite app, you'll be able to send a trigger command. This will light up. It will then send the trigger over to the Raspberry Pi, and it will trigger the firework. So I'll show you how to do all that in just a minute. Let's get over to the computer. We'll do the show designer setup, we'll do the FPP setup, and we'll show you how you configure the Experience Lights controller as well. All right, now that we're over at the computer, we can go to ignitefiringsystems.com, and then we can go over to products and then click on this link here, which is designer.ignitefiringsystems.com. That will open up the Ignite Show Designer software. It will ask you to log in. You will have to create an account if you don't have one, but after you create one, you will get to a screen that looks like this, and then you can create a new show. You'll have to give it a name. It's going to ask whether or not you have music. In our case, I'll say yes. If you need to add music, you can click this Add New option, and it will let you upload audio. I already did that step, so I have Firework by Katy Perry right here, so I'll select that. And then it will load in the audio, but you don't have any timed events yet. A timed event is basically a firework. So what you'll do is you'll play this audio track, figure out where you want the fireworks to be. You want to make sure you leave at least 2 seconds in between firework triggers on the same module. So in our case, we're using 2 different modules. So if we wanted a timed event to say start at 1:20 and then 1:22, I would send the first cue on module 1, the second on module 2. That way they can be within 2 seconds and kind of overlap, but not from the same module. So I'll speed this part up. All right, so in this one song, I set up 18 different timed events. So what you'll do is you can come over here, you need to select a module color, and then this first firework is going to be on module red, Q1. I need this to be Q2 because I'm going to use Q1 to trigger the firework in FPP system. If you want, you can set a duration. And if you want to account for the burn and lift, burn of the fuse, lift of the firework into the sky, you can use this Ignite Pre-Fire. So I'm going to do about 2.5 seconds. The second trigger is at 102, so it's after 2 seconds. So this can be number 3. This can also be red. So once you have all of this created, you can see we have a few things that are overlapping, but that's okay. Once we have the triggers configured from the different modules, we'll be all set. So what you can do, save your show, and then when you open the Ignite app, you'll be able to pull up that code. So once you pull up the show, your phone will be able to see this show with all the timing events, and that will allow it to trigger. So what we need to do is I need to add one more trigger here at the very beginning. And this Q1 is going to trigger the show. If If you want, you can go through and you can label each of these so you know which firework is which. I'm not worried about that right now. This is just for demonstration purposes. So what we'll do, we have all our cues, everything is set up. Go ahead and save that again. Next, I'll show you how we get FPP set up, and then I will show you on the phone how the Ignite system will trigger FPP. So let's jump over to that. So to get FPP set up on a Raspberry Pi, go ahead and you can Google the FPP download. You'll come to this GitHub page. Go ahead and scroll down and get the latest supported release. In our case, that is FPP version 5.5 Pi image. And then from here, what you're going to do is plug in your SD card. Go ahead and format the SD card. Select an image. After you select your image, make sure you're on the right SD card. Go ahead and click Flash. Go ahead and say yes. And then this will start to write the software onto FPP or onto the SD card. And then once this is done, you'll connect the SD card to the Raspberry Pi. Go ahead and boot it up and then wait for it to connect to the internet. I'll speed the video up and we'll come back once this is done. All right, so now that this is done, you can eject your SD card. We can connect it in the Raspberry Pi, and then we can get FPP configured. So once you locate the FPP device, in my case it is 192.168.30.5, the first time you load this, you will get this alert that the SD card has unused space. Click on Storage Settings to expand the storage partition. Go ahead and click on that and click Grow File System. This is going to expand the SD card so you can use the whole thing. It's going to require a reboot at the end. So I'll say, please reboot. I also need to make a few other quick changes, so I will reboot in just a minute. Let's go over to Network Interface Settings. It is using DHCP. When you are using a Raspberry Pi as a master, it's a good idea to set that as a static IP address. Now that we have done that, the IP address is going to change from .5 to .15. Go ahead and click on Reboot. And then because we are on the IP address .5, it will not reconnect. So we'll need to change this to 15. It's going to take a little bit for this to reboot, but once it reboots, it should come up under this new IP address. If you go over to your router, you should be able to see the new IP address pop up. There it goes. So now we have the Raspberry Pi set up. It is configured as a player, which means it's the master. From here, you want to go over to Input and Output Settings, go to GPIO Inputs, and then you can configure which trigger you want this to work with. So in our case, I'm going to use the top pin, which is this header pin 1-18 and GPIO number 24. Let's go ahead and click on that. We're going to click pull down. And we are going to do on the falling edge, start a playlist. And I don't have any media on here because it is a new FPP, so we can save this. We can go over to File Manager. And anytime you make changes in that GPIO section, you'll have to restart FPD. But we need to add some sequences. So let's come over here. So you can see we have the firework audio. We have the FSEQ. So let's go back over to GPIO inputs. Actually, sorry. Let's go over to playlist. We'll create a playlist real quick. So playlist name. Add a sequence. So this is going to be a sequence for this playlist. Go ahead and click save. GPIO 18, start playlist. We are going to start the playlist. You can click if not running. That just means if it's running, it won't start it over, but this is only going to be a single use, so it doesn't really matter. So click save, restart FPD. So that's everything you need in FPP. So let's jump over to the Ignite app. I'll show you that, and then we'll show you how the Ignite app will trigger FPP to start our playlist. So in the Ignite app, you'll click on modules, and the first time you connect to it, you'll have to add that code in. So what you'll do is open up the battery compartment, get the code. So let's do that real quick. So you push the power button, you turn it on. This is the second Ignite module that I have. So go ahead and click on it. It's going to ask for the code. And it found it and connected successfully. I made this yellow in the Show Designer software, so we'll connect that. And then what we're going to do is go over to our show. In the Show Designer software, it has a code in the top. So that code for my show is 4J7L. It's going to download everything. So here is my 4th of July show. And this has the audio, has everything we need. And when you're ready to fire the show, click on Fire Show. And everything's going to get ready. You'll see where your timing marks are and everything like that. And then you'll click Start Show. So what I'll do now is I will get the Raspberry Pi all set up, and then we will actually trigger the show. So what you're going to do after you have your Raspberry Pi set up is you'll connect an Ethernet cable to your GPIO extender. You'll see it gets the light right here telling you that it has a signal. You can take one of the igniters from the Ignite system. This is Q1. Go ahead and strip off a little bit of the wire, but you need to make sure that the Ignite or the clip is still attached. Go ahead and you can connect this. So we said ours is going to be on GPIO 18, which is this pin 6 right here. You'll see that pin 6 has an LED. And you can see our show is ready to fire. When I click Start Show, this light will turn off, which means it's sending the signal, which is going to start our lights, and then the lights and the firework would be together. And as you can see, the computer FPP is showing that the playlist has started. So our Ignite system triggered FPP in order to start our show. So we hope you enjoyed this video. We want to thank Ignite and Great Lakes Mortar Rack again for sponsoring this video. If you need any of the parts, I'll leave links to the I-18 module, the Experience Lights module, and Great Lakes Mortar Rack down below. And if you have any questions, definitely shoot us a message. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, hit that bell icon because we are going to release a video showing the fireworks actually going off in sync with the lights. So it'll be a really cool video that's going to be coming out next week. So stay tuned and we'll see you next time. Thanks everybody.